Hey everyone! Welcome back to Live Vulnerably. Glad you're joining us again.
Thank you for watching. Our topic for this video is going to be 5 ways to create something today. I myself have had a lot of trouble getting started with my creativity because I'm just like, I don't even know what to do. So we thought we would address that a little bit.
One of the things we mentioned in the video that we did for the relaunch a couple days ago was that process is often uncomfortable for creativity, and if you don't have it all perfect and together, oftentimes it's hard to start creating something. But with Live Vulnerably, we value connection, creativity, listening, and love. So we want to just touch on creativity early on with this whole relaunch. So here are just a couple practical ways that you can challenge yourself to do something today to really flex your creative muscle and use that voice that you have as a creator.
Yeah, so one of the good ways is to start with creative prompts. There's a lot available just simply online that you can just Google creative prompts, and there's so many different things that you can do, whether it's, I'll think of some creative prompts.
Yeah, well, I have a book that I've had for years, and it's basically a stream of consciousness list of things, just things that bring joy in life. The book's called 14,000 Things to Be Happy About. It's one of my favorite gifts I was ever given as a kid by my mom, and I now use it as a creative prompt book where I will open up to a random page and I'll just take the first thing on that page and use it as a prompt to create 3 different written paragraphs. So for instance, if the prompt is fresh strawberries, I could write a poem and shape it like a strawberry, or I could write a paragraph about a childhood memory picking fresh strawberries in the field, or I could use fresh strawberries as a setting in a short story. I encourage you to find something that would be a list of creative prompts and start using one of those a day, or even just one today, and create something out of that prompt.
Yeah, and then even for musicians, you could find a word and then try to play that word, whether it's like loneliness or delight or sacrifice or something. There's so many different ways, not just in like written creativity, but music, art, all sorts of different things, or just something to get your brain on a track of like, okay, I'm going to start with the word thesis, and I have no idea where I'm going to take that, but whatever thoughts start coming to mind, you can just kind of like get the wheels turning.
For all you creatives out there, you know that creative prompts also mean you don't need to stay inside any box, and you also don't need a finished product to still be creating something. You don't need to write a whole book. You don't need to write a whole screenplay. You don't need to write a full song. Start with just a stream of consciousness list and see where it leads you.
That's right.
Number 2, second way you can create something today is to draw inspiration from your environment around you.
For us, we are living in the jungle, which has been really beautiful. There's many plants. You can probably hear the birds right now. It's also been a total shift of life for us. So there's a lot of inspiration there. Just physical inspiration. I could draw inspiration from the shirt that Coburn's wearing. I could just look around and almost like I spy, be like, that stands out to me. I'm gonna write something about that shade of pink.
Envision a history for the environment around you too. If you don't know the history, think of what actually created the environment that you're standing in now. Think of what experiences or what time has brought to the environment around you, and then craft a narrative around that and use that for inspiration creatively too.
That's a really great one. Do you have any more to say on that?
On the environment around you? Well, maybe that has to do with listening too. There's lots of incredible voices around you, and tapping into the environment around you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the exact same as the environment around you. I see a lot of times people who aren't quite sure of their creative voice just yet say, I like that person's voice, so I'm going to sound like them. Don't do that, just sound like you. You know, sound like your unique voice that you are, and just start thinking you know, in a way that is not just to please the environment around you or just to please the people around you, but be unique. That one sounds so cheesy, but it's true.
It is true. It's just so important. It's easy to mimic. It's not as easy to create something new, but you can feel the power behind that when you're truly being who you are. And every single human in the entire world has something in common. And that being said, we're also very different because we have completely different perspectives coming from how we were raised, what environment we were raised in, just things we believe and things we feel. We're all different enough to create something entirely our own.
Yeah.
That's really important.
That's a good one.
That kind of leads into evaluate what you're feeling.
Number 3.
Number 3, evaluate what you're feeling.
Self-evaluation is a really important tool for creativity. We've mentioned it before, but we believe creativity is process. We are all in process in some ways in our life. We're all in some way not exactly where we want to be just yet at the finish line. We're in the middle of the messy in a lot of ways in life. When you take time to evaluate that, I think you really tap into your creative voice. When you take time to be vulnerable with yourself and not shy away from where you're at in process, you find truly what your voice is as a creative.
That's right, and I really love how so much relates to emotion. Even say that you would like to paint something and all you can feel is anger. There's colors that align with that, and some might surprise you. I can think just quickly of red, black, there might be yellow in anger. I heard someone say once that when you paint water even, you're surprised at how many different colors. It's not just blue and green and white. It's like so multifaceted. So sometimes all you need is just to understand what you're feeling and then how to create from that place.
I think one of the struggles I had as a creative for a while was being honest with my own emotions. The emotions that I was most tuned in with for most of my life growing up were either being happy, or if not happy, then I was mad. I was angry about not being happy. And the more I tapped into what emotions lie in between that spectrum, not that just happiness and anger are the two ends of a spectrum, but there are other emotions out there, and as I tapped into them, I started recognizing more the power I had as a creative to sit with some of those not pretty or imperfect emotions and kind of evaluate what I was feeling and find the truth in what I was feeling and actually get that onto paper as a writer too.
Yeah, and that's something that's so beautiful, is being able to use creativity to get to truth, to express truth, to experience truth in a whole different way.
Yeah. So a way to put number 3 into practical application is take a second, take a deep breath, and then just tune in. Yeah, exactly. Tune in to what feels like the most real emotion to you right now. Are you feeling joy? Are you feeling loneliness? Are you feeling rejection? Are you feeling excitement? Are you feeling jealousy? There's so many emotions. Find what's realist to you in the moment. Take another deep breath, and then start from that place. Get some words out, get some colors out, and then instead of just wallowing in that emotion, let it have its process. Let it take you to a place of getting somewhere better, or getting to a place of wholeness, or getting to a place of working through that emotion in a healthy way, not in a suppressing way.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And then also just, no, actually I really like what you said. Should we move on to the 4th?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Excellent. So the
Number
4th
4.
is being willing to get your hands dirty. And I think it's really important to be able to just not be striving for perfection. Living in the jungle, it's very easy to get dirty. So we've learned it in a very practical way. Like, sometimes you just have to accept that your feet will have dirt on them.
Lots of jungle men.
All the time, but it's kind of how you get to different places. So I think a lot of people would prefer a more, maybe not even prefer, but be comfortable in a more like boxy type of creativity, where like, okay, I have these boundaries and I'm gonna create here, and it's almost like it's clean, it's easier, and I just feel like if we're willing to be messy with it, to maybe recognize that, hey, this is my vision, and in between does not look like the end game, but it is really important to just be willing to make a mess and to be willing to like be liberated from the boundaries of your own self-expectation, because it can look cleaner to have like this plus this equals this. It's like almost easier, we anticipate it being easier to create almost clinically. That was the word I was struggling for. But when it comes down to it, really, it's beautiful to just be like, here's all the ideas in my head, I'm just gonna make a mess and then move forward from there. And a way that I've recently done that, I painted a picture for Coburn of a ship on the ocean, and while I was sitting with this idea, I had vision for it, but when I started painting, it wasn't coming out the way that I'd anticipated. But as I just stuck with like, okay, these aren't the colors I thought, I'm a little confused by why it looks like this, but allowed it to kind of just flow out of me instead of trying to keep it in this vision that I'd had. It was really beautiful and it was able to grow. So be willing to be messy and be willing to create something that might not look like what you originally thought, but it can still be its own beautiful thing.
That's a really good thought. Another piece to the getting your hands dirty point involves quite literally getting your hands dirty. One thing that I have learned a lot in my creativity is that getting outside and getting outside of my own head and my own screen, a phone screen or computer screen, is really, really valuable to my creativity. For the longest time, I equated the effectiveness of my creativity or the value of my creativity with how many people were seeing it. And the platform for people to see it is usually Instagram or somewhere online. And social media. And I started really measuring my own creativity by how well people responded to it. Ditch that for a second. You don't need to be on the computer. If you're a writer, actually pull out a journal and write with a pen and paper. You know, if you're a painter, you know, or you're using what am I saying? I'm losing my train of thought. If you're using digital skills to create, that's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful and beautiful thing. But I challenge you to try other things like painting and, you know, maybe getting some sawdust or some mud or a sunburn, but from being outside, you know? There's a lot of value to getting off of the screen, and there's also a lot of truth to be had when you recognize that the value, the worth of your creativity does not depend on how many people see it online. You can still be a really effective, beautiful, influential creator not doing things behind a screen.
That's right. That's really good.
And then the fifth one
is utilize your newest skill. So some of you might feel like, I don't really have a newest skill. That's kind of how I felt. But there's always something, just as you move through life, you're learning something. Mm-hmm. So for me, an example was I bought a wood burning knife 6 years ago. And I held on to it and kept it, and I was like, I don't actually know if I can do this, but this is an interest that I have, so I'm going to use it. And I just used my interest, and it's becoming a skill. So it's really interesting. My interest is interesting.
It is.
But it is really interesting how we just doing something makes such a big difference. Yeah. And you learn as you do, and a lot of the time as creatives, we want to do and then we want to learn and have it and then create from a place of authority. And I think it's really important to learn the differences between authority and process and then how they relate with each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good thought. Having a skill that is not there yet fully, it is not professional yet, is totally okay. That's how you grow as a creative, by exercising that. I know we're speaking to a lot of you who know this already, but it's hard in practice too. Sometimes you need that reminder. Just because a skill is new and you're not very good at it yet doesn't mean that you shouldn't exercise it. You'll be surprised at what you're able to create with a new skill. If you don't know what your new skill is, just take a second to evaluate what the last couple of days or couple of weeks looked like for you and something you picked up along the way. Maybe it's something that doesn't even look like a creative skill, but once you start exercising that skill, your creative voice really comes out.
Yeah, that's really good. And that's something that helped me break the limits of my own perspective of what creativity is. We are constantly creating, whether or not we feel like we are, because to create is just simply to make something. And so it could be said, I created coffee this morning. I applied my creativity into making coffee, and I created an outfit for myself, and I created all sorts of different things where if I really challenge you to just break your understanding of what it means to be creative.
Yeah, that's really good. I
Thank
think
you.
Just a quick recap then of the 5,
Yeah.
and we have our notes here, so we're looking here. The 5 ways to create something today. Start with some creative prompts.
Draw inspiration from your environment.
Evaluate what is your realist feeling in the moment.
Be willing to get your hands dirty.
And then utilize your very newest skill. We're looking forward to hearing and seeing what you guys create. Share it with us. Hashtag Live Vulnerably if you put it on Instagram. We'd love to feature it.
That's right, and we'd love your feedback as well, how these tools have helped you, how other tools have helped you. Like we said before, we'd love for this to be interactive. So share your ideas, share your perspective. We're here to listen.
That's it.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys later.
Bye.